Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Skull Session Recruiting Podcast. Signing day, recruiting capsules, class of 2024. Big day for the Buckeyes, trying to sign another very highly ranked recruiting class. And the Glenville pipeline back open for business. Bit of a drought. They get Arvell Reese last year. Getting a couple of guys here today. Damarion Witten, 4-star tight end. Cleveland Glenville. More of a flex tight end than a traditional inline, so complements things very well with Max LeBlanc, two guys that I think will, again, be able to play together at Ohio State, not necessarily competing for the exact same role in the offense. I've been very high on Damarion. I had him ranked number 3 in the state of Ohio for the 2024 recruiting class. I think that's much higher than most people have him. I think he's special. Kevin, you've maybe not seen him as much as I have, but you've seen him in some camp settings, and he had a great camp at Ohio State in the summer. You've seen him, the combine settings, best of Midwest over the years. Your thoughts on what the Buckeyes are getting in Witten?
Yeah, I really like him, and I had the chance to see him at the game up at the Hall of Fame early in the season, and I did watch the state championship game on television as well. And he is, not to steal your thunder, but he can do a little bit of everything. And while he was Glenville's kicker, I don't think he's going to be kicking at Ohio State. There's not many straight on kickers these days on the college ranks the way that he kicks, but it's hard to peg him down and say that this is what he does. This is his role. This is his job, because he can do a lot of things out there. And going back to the game that we saw up at the Hall of Fame early in the season, he didn't play in the first quarter, but he came in the second quarter, and that's when Glenville really took control of the game once Witten was out there. And he's that type of player that can really just turn the tide on his own. And it's funny talking about a tight end going to Ohio State being that type of player. And obviously the competition is going to get a little bit better than playing D4 Ohio football. But, I'm not betting against Damarion Witten. He is truly a unique athlete.
Yeah, and Glenville does challenge itself with its schedule. So yeah, it plays some D4 playoff teams, but they go non-league. They go pretty hard with it. They played Hoban. They played IMG this year, I believe. So Witten is very interesting. I think he's what Ohio State fans have kind of hoped for from the tight end position, as someone who can kind of line up as a flex guy and threaten defenses vertically. Just a tremendous athlete. Here he is, just a little bubble screen, and then he's off to the races. I mean, he is 6'4", 215 pounds. Like, he is not a small human being. And so, yeah, there's going to be a little bit of an adjustment period. He's going to have to put on like 20 pounds. He's going to have to learn to block to an extent. I mean, he's not going to be playing inline all that much, in my opinion, but he's going to have to learn how to block, especially on the perimeter. But he already does a pretty good job of that now. Explosive athlete. The coolest thing about him, I think, is, I was talking to Ted Ginn Sr. Just a couple weeks ago about him, and he said he's one of 3 Ted Ginn Sr. has been at Glenville for more than 50 years. He went there, he played there as a high schooler. He immediately got a job there out of high school. He was one point the school janitor. He was security. He's been an assistant coach there for 20 years. And he was a head coach. He's been the head coach there like the last almost 30. So he is the ultimate authority on the history of Glenville football. And he says that Damarion Witten is one of the 3 most gifted athletes that he's seen come out of Glenville. One was Terry Jones in the 70s, who was a quarterback, who was like a 3-sport star at Glenville. I think played baseball in the Big Ten. And there was another guy by the name of Dwayne Shields in the 80s. And then it's Damarion Witten. He told me, you can play quarterback, you can play tight end, you can play wide receiver, you can play safety, you can play defensive end, you can play linebacker, he kicks and punts. And just look at the big plays he's making at 6'4", 215, just explosive plays. And I think Kevin said it really well in that early game against the team from Virginia, whose name is escaping me right now, but was one of the better programs in Virginia. And Damarion didn't play the first quarter, comes in second quarter, and before you know it, they've scored like a couple of touchdowns, and it's been him that's either scored them or set them up. So just a dynamic weapon. And again, just the type of athlete he is, this was hilarious last year. He had a great game in the state championship, was probably their MVP of the game in the state championship last year. And that game was played on a Saturday night. On Monday night, so like 48 hours later, he goes out on the basketball floor and he has like 15 and 10 and is like a couple of dunks over people. Like he hadn't played basketball probably since the summer. He certainly hadn't practiced with the team. He just went out there 48 hours after playing a football game. Was like, yeah, I'm just going to drop a double-double here and, good luck stopping me. So he's just one of those unbelievably gifted athletes. And I think he's highly, highly underrated by the recruiting services. I think he's even underrated by like the fan base. I think they should be more excited about this one than they are.
Well, is it going to be the year of the tight end? That's always the question.
It kind of was. I mean, Stover had a great year.
Well, and that's true. And I think that fans were all cool with that to a point, but I think they would rather see it be the year of a Carnell Tate or a Brandon Ennis or somebody like that, or a Trevion Henderson if he comes back. But yeah, Damarion Witten is somebody that is not being talked about enough. It is so good to see that Glenville to Ohio State pipeline open again. There have been so many great Tar Blooders that have come through and played at Ohio State. And now with Arvell Reese already there, and with the signing of Witten, and I'm assuming since we're talking about Witten, we're going to be talking about shortly too. So and there's some young guys down the pipeline as well. But Witten really is a freak, and it's going to be interesting to see how quickly he's able to make the adjustment of being kind of a big fish in a small pond to being in the deep waters of the Big Ten Ocean.
The other thing I'm interested in, and I think Keenan Bailey does have a plan here, so I'm not as skeptical about this as maybe I would have been with past tight end situations. If they're bringing him in to like put a hand in the dirt and spend most of his time blocking, and that's not really his game. I mean, yes, he's gonna have to learn how to be a blocker on the perimeter. He's gonna have to learn to do the things like G. Scott does from a blocking standpoint, but he is a receiving threat. So wherever you put him, that has to kind of be the focal point, is getting him the football. You can find a sixth offensive lineman to do your blocking somewhere else. This is a deep ball threat. It's a guy who's too fast for safeties and linebackers, too big and strong for corners. You have to utilize his skill set in a unique way. Not unlike how Georgia, uses a Brock Bowers. Yes, can Brock Bowers block? Sure. Is Brock Bowers at his best when you're asking him to block? No, you want the ball in his hands. So this is kind of this along those lines, is you got to be willing to kind of do some unique stuff with him, move him around a bit. I think they are. I don't think they would have recruited him if they aren't. So that's going to be my thing to watch, but I feel pretty comfortable that they have a good grasp on that, and can see him doing some big things. I mean, you start looking a few years into the future with some of these receivers they have, and then someone like Damarion, who could play as like an H-back slot, or even on the outside, you throw him jump balls from those fade routes. That's going to be a lot for teams to handle in the red zone. He's such a red zone monster, for lack of a better term. It's just so hard to defend in the red zone with his size and his athleticism.
Yeah, he'll be kind of a cheat code out there for that. And, I think if Ohio State has enough of a run threat, whether or not it's a more mobile quarterback or whatever, I mean, it's going to be, we're not going to be having the same conversations we were having in 23 and in 22 about Ohio State's inability to pick up third and one at the 6 and things of that nature. I think that it's going to be, the business is going to be good for Ohio State's offense at that point, because Witten is going to be one of those types of players. I mean, because Ohio State certainly has had size at certain positions, but I don't really remember. I mean, I have to kind of go back a little ways to remember the last, run the fade and see what happens there. And I think Witten's going to be a guy that can do that.
I mean, gosh, you could even put him in the backfield. And he started his football career as a quarterback. So talk about we're going to talk about the red zone issues. What about Damarion Witten in Wildcat you can put him, or you can put a back in there with him. He can run zone read. I mean, there are a million things this kid can do. So I'm excited for his future at Ohio State. So Damarion Witten in the fold. He'll be at Ohio State in January. He'll be enrolling early, get a good head start on putting on those 15, 20 pounds he's going to need to put on. So hopefully we'll get to see him out there in the spring, see what the type of progress he's made, how they might be utilizing him. But this is a guy that, maybe after a year getting his feet under him, I think can be a pretty good player for the Buckeyes, and someone Ted Ginn Sr. is predicting will be a superstar at Ohio State. So we will see if that turns out to be the case. But I think Ted Ginn Sr. has got a pretty good eye for talent. So we'll see how that unfolds. But appreciate everyone watching, listening. We'll be back with another capsule here shortly.